Alrighty. In this video, we're going to go over forks, specifically forks relating to Bitcoin, although this does relate to any other proof of work blockchain as well. So, there are a few different types of forks that can happen. One type is accidental fork. The other type of forks both happen when there's an update to the consensus or the rules that govern Bitcoin pretty much. And these are the rules that all the miners have to follow. And only blocks that follow all these rules can be added to the blockchain. So there's two types of update forks. These are soft forks and hard forks. And the definition of a fork is just two blocks at the same block height. So an accidental fork happens when two miners solve a block at the same time, like what we went over in my previous video. So the thing is, when two miners find that block at the same time, it does create a short-term fork in the Bitcoin blockchain. But these forks always will iron themselves out pretty quickly, and though it won't actually cause there to be two separate chains that keep running. It's just the one that ends up being the longest chain is the one that ends up being the legit one, and all the blocks from the other forked chain are invalid after that, and any other transactions would return to the mempool. So that's the accidental fork happening, and those are not forks that will actually lead to two competing chains. So now I'm going to go over a little bit of soft fork and hard fork. So both of these take place when there's an update to the consensus rules. And these are the rules that must be checked to see if a block is valid or invalid. So consensus is rules that must be followed for a block to be valid. Things like the sender has the funds, make sure the block size is under 1 megabyte. There are other rules as well, but all these rules must be met for a block to be appended to the blockchain, and miners will deny any block that does not meet these rules. When these rules are updated, it is difficult to get all the nodes in the network to update. So when nodes have different chains because of the rules. Then there can be a fork in the chain, and this fork can happen in multiple ways depending on the circumstances. So the type of update that would lead you to a hard fork is an update or upgrade that makes previously invalid blocks now valid. So for instance, if you had a block with the block size limit of 2 megabytes, and the current consensus rules say that it can only be 1 megabyte, then that block is disregarded and considered invalid. But then if an update changes that block size limit to 2 megabytes, after the update, if there was a 2 megabyte block, it would now be accepted. So the hard fork occurs when not everyone updates. For there not to be a hard fork, 100% of the entire network would need to implement the update or upgrade. So if not all the miners are convinced to update to the new software, then there will be a hard fork. Hard forks have happened multiple times in Bitcoin when there have been updates, when the opinion of the community is split. And some of these are Bitcoin Gold, Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin SV in no specific order. So the main thing to remember with the hard fork is it happens when previously invalid blocks are now valid. So now we're going to touch on how a soft fork happens. And a soft fork is an update that makes previously valid blocks invalid. So if an update was proposed to, say, lower the block size, then that could be something that could make a soft fork occur. So once nodes update, then some blocks that were previously valid are no longer valid. And that's a soft fork. So on a soft fork, if you have, for instance, half the network that is upgraded and half the network that is not upgraded, then the nodes that did not upgrade will accept blocks that follow either of the consensus rules. Eventually, they will merge back into one chain as long as at least 51% of the network upgrades. And a soft fork update is one where the network will not split into two chains as long as, like I said, more than 50% of the network agrees with the upgrade. If less than 50% upgrade, then there'll actually be a split and there'll be two chains. And people usually prefer soft fork over hard fork, just because with a hard fork you need 100% to update to not split the chain, and with the soft fork you only need above 50% of the network to upgrade. So hard fork is an expansion of rule set, so like previously invalid blocks are valid, and it requires 100% to upgrade to avoid a fork. And a soft fork is like a contraction. Previously valid blocks become invalid, and no actual fork will happen if more than 50% of the network upgrade. So I'm going to go over the pros and cons of each. So some of the pros of a hard fork is it provides very clear update. Everyone knows exactly what's going to happen, and in a way it is a democratic type update, because if you don't update or upgrade, you'll just start on your own chain separate from that chain. So if you don't agree with it, and a lot of people don't agree with it, then they can keep using the chain they're using without the upgrade. So that'll create a new chain if not 100% agree. So some of the cons are it splits the chains into multiple. It splits the community, so hash power is now split between them, which reduces security. So that's some of the cons. So now I'm going to go over the pros and cons of a soft fork. So a soft fork, some of the pros are majority rule. So if over 50% agree, then it's going to be implemented. But this is, in a way, non-democratic, because it does force the nodes that do not agree onto the main chain. They don't split. So that happens there. And another pro is that I said there's no chain split, so the community is not divided. Hash power is not divided, keeps that community whole. But one of the cons is it does cause quite a bit of confusion, specifically if it takes the other nodes a really long time, the nodes and miners a really long time to upgrade, then it's going to cause some confusion in the network and such, kind of like with SegWit, which we'll go over in a later video. But for now, that's really all I'm going to go over. I hope this kind of gives you an idea of what forks are and why forks happen in Bitcoin, and the difference between an accidental fork, which will usually just iron itself out. It's just two miners found a block at the same time, and that will usually fix itself, because whichever chain becomes a longer chain will be the one that's utilized, and the blocks off the other chain will be invalid and disregarded. And then a soft fork and a hard fork. And I mean, really, you don't have to understand this, but it is pretty important to understand, I think, because you would then understand where things like Bitcoin Cash came from, Bitcoin Diamond, Bitcoin SV. They're hard forks of Bitcoin. I'm gonna end the video there, and again, thank you everyone for watching my videos. I will be doing more giveaways in the near future, and just stay tuned. Everyone have a great rest of your day. Thank you for watching.